Some rumors are out there that the Islanders may have already possibly added a forward, but not announced it yet. We'll talk about that and where this player might fit in. We also have an opposite take on Lou Lamoriello, and William Dufour heads to the NHL Rookie Showcase. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And you can also now find us on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a little search for Locked On Islanders. This episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter promo code LockedOnNHL for a free water bottle with any order. You won't want to take your Birddogs off, we promise you. Lots to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings, free agent rumors, hirings, firings, trade rumors. If it's happening to the Islanders, we will discuss it here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. Big news, more of rumor than news, and I sort of have a few things to say about it, but originally discussed on the Hockey News website, where the Islanders may actually be interested in signing a player who is still officially listed as a free agent. In fact, this player may have already, according to the rumors, signed with the Islanders, but Lou Lamoriello hasn't announced it yet. And we're talking right now about Tomas Tatar, who spent last year with the New Jersey Devils. And Tatar would be a replacement for Zach Parise, logically, if Parise indeed decides to hang him up. And, you know, I was thinking about this, and look, would it make sense to me that Lou Lamoriello would make that kind of a move, especially with his team almost $500,000 over the salary cap right now? Now, remember, before the season starts, teams can be as much as 10% over the salary cap. You know, so can't announce this yet without making a corresponding move, but there are reasons I think this would help and not be a great move for the New York Islanders. Let's talk a little bit about Tatar. He is 32. He'll turn 33 in December. He is, again, one of those players that is, it fits the Lou Lamoriello mold. Why? He's over 30. That's something Lou tends to like. Experienced. He is a solid defensive player, even got some votes for the Selke Trophy. He finished 24th. Not going to say he was at the top of that list, but he is considered a solid two-way forward. He has a number of 20-goal seasons on his resume, 6 of them to be exact, including last year where he played for the Devils and had 20 goals and 48 points in 82 games, had a plus 41 plus minus, which is indeed impressive. Not going to help a lot on the power play 5 power play goals total over the last 3 seasons, 1 with Montreal, 2 with the Devils. Did have 8 power play goals with Montreal back in 2020, 2021. Had 9 power play goals with Detroit in 2014, 2015. So Tatar is the kind of player who has experience on the power play. And I guess like Zach Parise before him, would be able to fill in on the second power play unit, but would not be considered a big elite power play guy. His career shooting percentage is almost 13%, and last year it was 13.1%. So we're talking about a guy who, while he doesn't shoot a lot, had 153 shots on goal, a little less than 2 shots on goal per game over 82 games. His shot is pretty accurate, and it's consistently so. He's never been below 11.4% shooting percentage in a complete NHL season, and never been above 15.1%. So we know what Tatar can do, and it's just a question of, where he fits with the Islanders. Here's the reason, though, or one of the reasons that I don't particularly like the idea of adding Tomas Tatar. Zach Parise was playing for at or very close to the veteran minimum the last 2 years with the New York Islanders. And yeah, he was already getting money because of the buyout agreement that he had with the Minnesota Wild. He was getting paid a lot of money to not play for Minnesota, so he didn't need to take more than the minimum to come to Long Island and play for the New York Islanders. And again, all of that is fine. But Tatar would probably be $2.5 to $3 million a year. And that would require the New York Islanders to make a couple of moves to get Tatar on the roster and get the Islanders under the salary cap. As we mentioned, right now, the Islanders are slightly over the salary cap. According to Cap Friendly, they are right now $486,625 over the projected salary cap. You cannot, at this point, add, let's say, $2.5 to $3 million in salary to that and put yourself into the $3 million, $3.5 million range of being over the salary cap. That just isn't going to work. Yes, theoretically, the Islanders could do it before training camp opens up, and training camp is just around the corner, but it would also mean taking players like Ross Johnston, like Carson Kuhlman, Julien Gauthier, guys like that. Maybe all 3 of them would have to be either cut, put on waivers, sent down. Certainly, the Islanders could make a trade at some point. You have an extra defenseman between Sebastian Aho and Samuel Bolduc. Maybe you trade one of them. Although I think you want to keep both just in case one of them struggles a little bit. So again, just a lot of questions right now, but the salary for Tatar, to me, makes it a little more tricky to try to add him. And then the other factor is this. If you want to add Tomas Tatar on a 1-year deal at 1.5, 2, possibly even $2.5 million, I get it. He would be statistically and in many ways a good substitute for Zach Parise. I would rather have Zach Parise at $800,000 a year than Tomas Tatar at $2.5 to $3 million a year. But do not, under any circumstances, offer Tatar more than a 1-year deal. And my fear or my concern knowing Lou Lamoriello and his track record, is you go to a 2 or a 3-year deal with Tatar, and all of a sudden there's another veteran guy who is getting more term than they need to get at this point, and locking the Islanders in to another player who, whether he's a little overpaid or not, is taking up a roster spot that in a year when guys like Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck, come off the books, you want to be able to have a William Dufour or a Matthew Maggio or a Ruslan Iskakov or, one of those younger guys or even Oliver Wahlstrom to be ready to take that spot. So to me, it is more important to, if you're going to stick with Clutterbuck and Martin this year, and it looks like that's what the Islanders are going to do, then it would be considered, in my mind, important to not tie up those young players beyond this year by signing Tatar. Now, if you get, again, 1-year deal, I can live with it if you can free up the cap space. But beyond that, I have serious concerns about the potential addition of Tomas Tatar. Love to hear your opinion. We'll put up a poll on our YouTube site and feel free to vote there. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We will have an email from a listener talking about a slightly different point of view on Lou Lamoriello, and we'll discuss that. We'll talk about William Dufour and his participation in the NHL's Rookie Showcase. And we have our Islanders birthday of the day, a former Ranger who finished his career with the Islanders and went on to become the GM. Let's see if you can guess who that is. All that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Birddogs make you look good. Their stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg to give you that truly sculpted look. Birddogs shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. Birddogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches to give you that slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And Birddogs uses an anti-stink, sweat-wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. And look, Birddogs are functional for any occasion. You can work out with them, go out on a date, go out anywhere, even to work, wearing your Birddogs, and they are so comfortable. When I was sick last month and in the hospital, I wanted my Birddogs because I know how comfortable they are. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter promo code LockedOnNHL at checkout for a free Birddogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take off your Birddogs, we promise you. So always great to hear from our listeners and our viewers. And this one comes from Charlie, who has emailed us before. And, this may not be the most popular email. He did send it over the weekend, but we were discussing some other issues, and I wanted to see if anyone else responded. But here's Charlie's email. Gil, I think Lou is still an excellent GM. Judge him from day one running the Islanders to today, minus the pandemic season, which, let's face it, the Islanders were completely crushed by the virus. And he's talking about the 2021-22 season when the Islanders had about 8 or 9 players at a time missing action. So if Dufour is what I believe he is, people will be singing Lou's praises. All the pieces are in place if Dufour takes the wing on the first line and delivers even strength and power play, as I believe he will. It's the missing link. The Horvat trade was an excellent one that will pay dividends starting this year. No one ever mentions the great moves like walking away from Robin Lehner and signing Varlamov. The Taves trade was a salary cap move, not something anyone wanted to do, including Lou. Yes, he's a good player, but he benefited greatly from the system, and having great teammates in Colorado. Dobson will turn into a great defender and produce 80 points this year. The team is going to shock the NHL with a top 5 finish somewhere in the 112-point range. Barrie leaving was simply an acknowledgement by Barrie to Lou that he had no intention of coaching past the last year on his contract. Both Lou and Barrie most likely understood the Nashville situation. Lane Lambert will build on last year and was recommended by Barry Trotz himself. If this team wins a cup this year, people will still criticize Lou. He is old school. I don't think outside opinions matter to him, positive or negative. I think he is focused on winning. Hope you're well, Charlie. Charlie, first of all, thanks for the well wishes, and thank you for the email. I know a lot of people who listen and watch this show regularly will disagree. And I think what you say has a certain amount of validity. The Islanders have been under Lou Lamoriello for 5 seasons now. They've made the playoffs in 4 of those seasons, won a round in 3 of those years, and advanced to the conference final in 2 of them. And yes, Lou has made some very good moves. To me, the best move he made is the long-term deal he signed Ilya Sorokin to this offseason, where he got him for 8 years, the maximum term, at a number that was below the maximum dollar amount that goaltenders are adding. He's not making as much money, for example, as Sergei Bobrovsky. And yet I think for the next 8-9 years, he'll be a better goalie than Sergei Bobrovsky. So to me, Lou has made some moves to get this team to a level that they weren't at in the 5 years prior to his arrival on Long Island. I definitely respect Lou Lamoriello for his career accomplishments. He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. That being said, I think your outlook is sort of a best case scenario. I don't think William Dufour is ready to play in the NHL this year. Certainly not on the first line, although I'd love to be pleasantly surprised. I think that asking, for example, Noah Dobson to get 80 points on this team playing this defense-first system may be a bit of an ask and won't be so easy for Dauber. But look, last year, Dobson had 49 points in 78 games. Can he get that number up to 60 this year? 60 to 65 points? Let's say 15 goals, 45 assists? Yeah, it is possible. But again, the defense-first orientation of this system makes that a little bit of a long shot. And look, you didn't mention, Charlie, Oliver Wahlstrom and the possibility that he becomes a 20 to 25 goal a year guy that could help this team. If everything breaks right for this team, could they top the 100-point barrier? Maybe. Could they certainly finish 3rd or a solid 4th in the division? I think absolutely. I still think on paper right now, New Jersey and Carolina are better than the Islanders on paper, but it's a long way between now and the start of the playoffs. Look, I agree with you that Lou doesn't care that much about outside opinions. That's not his MO. And I think the thing that still concerns me is that this team hasn't been more than a fringe playoff team during the regular season, and then you've traded away a lot of your top prospects and the last 4 first-round draft picks to keep them at that point. So my concern is the future, and I think you have a core of potentially younger, talented players that should be the nucleus of this team for the next 5 or 6 years. Bo Horvat, Matthew Barzal, Pelech, Polak, Sorokin, Dobson, assuming that his defensive zone performance improves. I think those players right there give you a solid core. You still need more scoring, And to me, the concern is when your 30-plus-year-old forwards start to slow down, your Lees, your Nelsons, your Pageaus, your Palmieri's, Cizikas, Martin, and Clutterbuck, all those guys on the quote-unquote wrong side of 30, I don't see 5 or 6 young forwards. And you're talking about, your top goal scorers there. I mean, that list that I mentioned is realistically your 4 top goal scorers from last year, with the addition being Zach Parise, who may not be back. So I don't see a lot of candidates right now who will be ready in 2 or 3 years to step in and give you 25, 30, 35 goals like you're getting from Lee, Nelson, etc. That's the concern that I have about the way that Lou Lamoriello is putting this team together. Does that mean that, there aren't moves that can be made to get better some point down the line? No, but I do have questions as to whether Lou Lamoriello will make those moves, or whether he's just willing to make that all in for now run now. And then when he retires, whoever replaces him or succeeds him will be stuck with an aging team with a lack of picks and prospects. That, to me, is sort of the big issue, and we will see what happens with it. All right, William Dufour headed to the NHL Rookie Showcase. We'll talk about that. Plus, we will talk about our Islanders' birthday of the day. All that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So William Dufour is the only Islanders representative right now at the NHL's Rookie Showcase. And it's taking place, or it took place by the time you hear this, Tuesday night. I will have full coverage about Dufour's performance on Friday's show. And look, a lot of players invited, a lot of big names invited. Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli, some of the bigger picks from this year's draft, a lot of first-round picks, first overall picks, guys whose name a lot of even casual hockey fans were familiar with if you follow the draft or prospects at all. Connor Geekie of the Arizona Coyotes, Matthew Savoy of the Buffalo Sabres. These are players who, people followed before the draft, and people who are expected to make an impact. And the fact that there is an Islander like William Dufour, who was obviously not drafted early, William Dufour was a guy who the Islanders selected in the 5th round with the 152nd overall pick. We are not talking about a high draft pick, and yet here he is. And you sort of wonder, did he earn that designation, or did they want at least one Islanders player to be there? I think, Dufour has more or less earned it, and I'm glad to see him on the roster. And it will be a positive learning experience for William Dufour to go up against. It's kind of like the World Juniors 2.0 in the sense that you have, the top 18, 19, maybe 20-year-old players out there who are going to be fighting against each other. It's sort of like the best older juniors and younger AHL players. And the fact that Dufour is a part of that, to me, is very positive. And his size, here we are, he's 6'2", 215. Seeing how he uses that size against his peers and giving him a chance again to compete against top competition. And remember, at the World Juniors in 2022, 3 goals, 7 points in 7 games for Dufour playing for Canada, and he was a +6. So clearly, he thrived in a similar situation at the World Juniors, and it'll be great to see how he does. And again, we'll discuss all of this on Friday's show. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And Tuesday was the 66th birthday of former Islanders forward and general manager Don Maloney, the Lindsay, Ontario native, drafted in the second round by the Rangers in 1978, joined the Rangers for the second half of that 78-79 season and really shined in the playoffs, 20 points in 18 games as the Rangers went to the Stanley Cup final that year. Twice scored 29 goals in a season, but stayed with the Rangers until midway through the 88-89 season, was then traded to the Hartford Whalers and joined the Islanders for the 1989-90 season, a year the Islanders did make the playoffs, and he was pretty productive. Excuse me. For an older player, gave them 79 games, 16 goals, 43 points for a guy who was at that point really a third or fourth line checking forward. Came back for part of the 90-91 season, but only played 12 games and had 5 assists, 765 career games for Don Maloney, 214 goals, 564 points, and 815 penalty minutes. Add 22 goals and 57 points in 94 playoff games, 5 of those games with the Islanders. And Maloney, one of those guys who could put the puck in the net, a lot of 20-goal seasons, good at digging pucks out of the corners, and just a solid two-way player. One of his better games as an Islander, December 15th, 1989 at the old Cap Center in Landover, Maryland. Glenn Healy, the Islanders goalie, Don Beaupre, the goalie for the Washington Capitals. And in this game, Don Maloney, 2 goals on 4 shots. He was a +2. Both goals coming at even strength. The second one, an empty netter to clinch a 5-3 win for the Islanders, who were only 10-20-4 at that point, but they get a big road win in this one and start to right the ship on a year they eventually made the playoffs. Islanders outshot in this game 37-24, but Glenn Healy makes 34 saves. Don Maloney, after he retires, ends up as the Islanders GM and was the GM when they made that long playoff run in 1993. So he had his moments with the team, but couldn't sustain it. Ownership eventually bringing in Mike Milbury and not spending money, and we got some problems with that. He later worked for the Arizona Coyotes front office and really is a hockey lifer. So Don Maloney is our Islanders birthday of the day. Thanks again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, Friday on the show, we'll talk about how William Dufour did at the NHL Rookie Showcase. Any new rumors on either Zach Parise or Tomas Tatar, we'll have that and a lot more. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, stay safe, everybody. Have a great day. And of course, let's go Islanders.